Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself?
Hi, my name is Bianca Probably, and I probably watch too many movies. I'm not gonna bait you here. The Substance is my favorite horror movie of the year. It might be in the title. I don't know what the title is yet. It might be in the title. To me, it is by far the best. I am a very invested fan of this genre. I love it dearly, and I haven't really loved a lot of the movies that came out in the first half of this year. And that's particularly disappointing because I think 2022 and 2023 showcased some of the best horror movies we've gotten in a while. Either highly anticipated sequels missed the mark for me, or extremely hyped originals that simply did not meet my expectations. I was feeling a little bit worried about going into the rest of this year, but then I sat down for The Substance. I was floored. It's a little bit Death Becomes Her, a little bit Infinity Pool, and a lot of The Fly pressed into this ridiculous, a boundary pushing movie that is both heartbreaking but also hilarious. I was touched in a way I didn't expect to think about, and there are multiple moments in the movie that just cycle in my brain on repeat against my will. I just can't stop thinking about them. They were so impactful and so well done, or just so fucking funny. I just need to talk about it. That's why I'm sitting here in my activator / brat bra, to talk about this. The director is screenwriter Coralie Farja. Those 2 years of French mean nothing. She is a French director and screenwriter whose debut film was Revenge, which is a story of a woman's revenge against her assaulters. And it's done with such flair while capturing the pain of the main character's journey. And I think she also does a wonderful balancing act in The Substance. I'm going to say this right now. If you are a fan of body horror and you somehow clicked on this video and have not seen The Substance yet, I implore you to do so. And I suggest going into it with as little context as possible, but if you need a little bit more hand-holding before we get there, just let me talk to you for a minute before we get into the major recap. The Substance follows waning Hollywood star Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore. Elizabeth seems to have had a very storied career, once filled with glitz and glamour and awards and acclaim, and that has now been reduced to a handful of viewers she still gets on her fitness program that once gripped daytime television. After being unceremoniously let go on her birthday because she has now aged out of desirability, she is presented with an insidious offer, an opportunity to create a new, better version of herself using the titular substance. The substance is a regimen that creates and maintains a new version of you from replicated cells. It doesn't really serve as an alter, which is kind of what I originally thought towards the beginning of the movie, as in another form that you control yourself, like one consciousness, two bodies. It is continually stressed that you are one. It is repeated throughout the film, despite having its own consciousness, you are on the same team. It is you. After succumbing to temptation, she goes through the brutal process. The shenanigans ensue.
People are constantly asking me, what's it like to be a sex offender?
So how the hell do we go from here to here? Hang on tight. Let's talk about it. We open on a shot of a single egg, and there is this radiation green filled syringe that we see someone inject into the yolk, and then right in front of our eyes, it duplicates and ups our protein content for the day. Cutting from that, we are whisked away to Hollywood Boulevard and another overhead shot of a newly minted star for Elizabeth Sparkle. We get to stay in this very spot over decades, and we see the pomp and circumstance dissipate, and it goes from being a must-see stop to a literal slop catcher, cracked and unmended. And then we get to see a current day view of Elizabeth filming her aerobics program. Very Jane Fondian, at least that is my best guess. I was raised in a Billy Blanks household. I just want to say Demi looks great, good for her. And she has a signature she does at the end of each program, blowing a kiss to the camera.
Take care of yourself.
Wrapping up the shoot, she walks down the corridor, and it's a very Shining-esque hallway, and we see pictures of her throughout the years showing her tenure, and plenty of folks in the building are addressing her politely and wishing her a happy birthday. She goes to go to the bathroom, but since the women's is out, she goes to the men's. Girl, same. Ain't no sign gonna stop me from pissing. Moments after she enters the stall, we are introduced to Harvey, a probably just as aged, if not more so, man, discussing how Elizabeth needs to be pulled from air because the clock has struck 50 and therefore her value has depreciated.
We need her young. We need her hot
We need her now.
Harvey is rich and successful and is struggled to pee levels of old. I hear the stream hitting the urinal. You can't hide from me. You should also not be hiding from your prostate exam. But no one is telling him that he needs to step down from his position and his worth isn't directly tied to how tight his ass is. After he stomps out of the bathroom, Elizabeth silently exits the stall, knowing what's to come for her. And then suddenly her name envelops the screen in a name card. The next scene we see is Elizabeth being eaten at. They're not eating together. She's being eaten at. Harvey is moving through this shellfish selfishly, and he isn't considering Elizabeth, and he isn't considering me, who snuck her burrito into the movie theater to enjoy. And it was that moment where I knew the way they were weaponizing the sound design, if I did not eat my burrito in the first quarter, it was not gonna get ate. And I'm usually not squeamish when it comes to movies. I was able to eat a full meal while watching When Evil Lurks, but the true disgust that was intended in that scene was extremely effective. He's giving her a speech how renewal is inevitable and how it stops at 50.
What stops?
What?
What stops?
Harvey makes a show of leaving the table and leaving Liz's question unanswered, and she has a moment of reflective stillness as she watches a fly that was moments ago on the back of Harvey's neck drown in her wine. Happy fucking birthday. On her drive home, she finds out that word travels fast apparently because an ad on a billboard of hers is actively being taken down, and she is so shook by this she blows through a red light that leaves her in a pretty bad accident. So jarring that I thought she was going to be in at least a brace for the rest of this 2 hours. Also, did I mention this movie is a healthy 2 hours and change? Strap in. I am trying to use as much brevity as possible and not talk about every single little detail, but I do know there are going to be moments where I expand upon a point because I just can't fucking help myself. After this unfortunate case of bumper cars, she's examined at a hospital, no worse for wear, at least physically, not a bruise or a break on her. And while this doctor's bedside manner is a 10, his ability to read the room is at a 2. After she's cleared, he's throwing adoration her way, and she is just simply not in a space to receive that.
Oh, hey, it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
He has to rush out for surgery, but his porcelain-skinned intern stays behind for a moment and stops Liz from leaving. This man looks like AI in real life, and I don't know if that's intentional or he just has more highlighter on than I could ever imagine, or if I've just insulted this man. So hopefully it's not the latter. She's kind of confused at first because she believes she got clearance to jet, but he's examining her back with a stethoscope and then pinches her spine, letting it slip that she'd be a good candidate, which further puzzles her. He says that she's all good to go, handing her a yellow coat that we will become very familiar with. We get a shot that focuses in on the birthmark on his wrist. Leaving the hospital without even a single paparazzo to bug her, she digs in her pockets and she finds a USB drive that is marked The Substance. Roll credits, and a note wrapped around it with the words scrawled out. It changed my life. Before she can really unpack that, she bumps into an old high school acquaintance named Fred. And you can tell that he's led a little bit less of a glamorous life than her. He's a bit goofy, but he seems to be well-meaning. He says that she's still the most beautiful girl in the world, and he's applauding her career. And while you can tell, like, she kind of feels awkward about it, considering the days that she's had, it probably doesn't suck to hear that at this current moment. He asks for her number to potentially meet up for drinks, and she's hesitant, but she does agree to take his number.
Now you've got it.
We now see her in her well-decorated penthouse with a huge image of her in her prime hung up on the back wall, looking over at the grim vibe that has now taken over the homestead. She looks over the city and ignores the roses on the table from her agency with a note that says, "You were amazing." She feels wounded by this, so she plugs in the USB that she found in her pocket into the TV, probably safer than a computer admittedly, and it starts playing. And the promo immediately gives me like the energy of marketing that appeals to the youth. I actually had a friend of mine compare it to like the Dropout setup. It has like a black background, the backing track sounds like something you can hear in a Berlin club, and it's snappy and minimalistic. And the deal with The Substance is that you are injected with it. It kickstarts a cellular division to create a younger, better you. You, the taker of the substance, are the mate matrix and the source of everything. And then the you created for the substance is still you, but it's like another you, and you exist in the world as yourself for 1 week, and then your other self, still you, but is not you for their purposes, has a week of existing all young and hot and beautiful life. Still you, but not you. And there are no exceptions, because you are one. That, again, you are one. Liz smells bullshit, and after it concludes, she tosses the USB in the trash can. She goes out for a drink or 4 at the sight of a young couple canoodling at the bar. She goes home and hugs her toilet, taking a survey of the dust-covered trophies and snow globe full of glitter in her living room. She shakes up the snow globe, and it's filled with glitter, and simultaneously memories of days past rush her until she gets frustrated and gives the poster version of herself the face crack of the century. This drives her to dig in that trash can and pick up the phone and call the number that is on the other side of the USB to place an order. And it's at this moment in the movie where I noticed just how little Demi has spoken up at this point. We've heard her voice like when she's like commanding the aerobics class. Following that, she's pretty muted. Like, her voice actually surprised me because I realized I haven't heard her say a full sentence in like 20 minutes. Most of her moments are quiet and stewing, but like still very engaging. And on the other end of the phone, they hurriedly give her an address after she discloses hers, and they hang up. In the morning, it kind of seems like she's kind of pushed that thought to the back of her head, taking a quick shower and sitting down with an Alka-Seltzer tablet and a newspaper while her housekeeper vacuums. But then a hit of reality slams her harder than the hangover when she sees an ad in the paper, verbatim, who will be the next Elizabeth Sparkle. Very like, we made you, we'll just make another one. And after tossing the paper across the floor, she sees that her package has already hit her doorstep. That was me a lot during the early pandemic, getting drunk and finding things at my door the next day. That package has a card in it, and that card says 503, and it appears to be an access card. Back in that yellow jacket, the camera is following her to this destination at a quick and paced, but not too jittery at this time, but a little jolty, in this kind of dank ass alleyway. She uses her newly issued card to pick up a package in what feels like a very like sterile environment. It's like an operating room and a mail room had a baby. She finds her P.O. box and she takes the contents of that sucker home. Back home, she opens the box and she has items in there with simple instructions. There's an activator, which has a single-use syringe that is meant to kick off the process, a stabilizer, which the other self is to use daily to maintain their constitution, an apparatus to allow them to switch, which is 2 syringes on either side to swap fluids, and a food matrix for both of them to enjoy when they're having their little week-long nip nap. Again, it is stressed that this is not another being per se, you are one, because it is derived from you. In the bathroom, she stands naked and she runs her fingers over her body before she uses the activator. She's touching places that she feels to be imperfections, wrinkles, birthmarks, and taking that all in before she makes this decision. And again, I will say, Demi Moore looks great, and I know this is probably a subject that has been prevalent in her career, and she absolutely goes for it, and this movie doesn't work if she doesn't do that. I love it so much, god damn it. She fills the syringe and initiates her brat summer.
Yeah, 360.
For a moment, it feels like nothing is happening, and she kind of gives it a scoff, but girl, we're not even at the half-hour mark, Liz. I know that something is about to shake, okay? She quickly like slams to the floor, convulsing, and her eye seemingly multiplies for a moment, and her back just like straight up splits open with another person emerging from it, and it kicks off like what feels like a mini requiem for a dream sequence. This is the only thing I can really particularly compare it to at this time. And this scene is very visceral and violent, and it's a lot of naked bodies covered in blood, so I really hope you like this mug right now that I did in 30 minutes on my lunch today. We are now in the POV of this new being that is played by Margaret Qualley.
I'm Margaret Qualley.
The sound is making it feel like our ears are waterlogged, and I talked about the sound design earlier, but I really can't stress enough. Disturbing isn't necessarily the word I want to use, at least at this time. We'll get there, but like, it's very intentional. It makes you feel like you're kind of coming up to the surface with this being. And for a moment, we see Liz on the floor looking like a carcass because her back is still ripped open because Margaret just walked out of it. And she looks kind of dead, but like she's just simply like off, like she's out of office. I don't really know what else to say about that. And then we see the other self catches herself in the mirror, and then the waterlogged noises kind of stop, and we have this moment of silence as she's now doing the inverse. She's marveling her body. She's taking in her perculoides and her flawless skin. She ends up puking green liquid after realizing, oh no, the house I just evacuated is bleeding on the floor. She stitches up Liz. Very long the sew up scene happens with a needle and thread that was also conveniently supplied. Very one-stop shop, the people making the substance TM. And she hooks Liz up to her food matrix, which seemingly gives her a bit more life in her. We had some airflow back in the lungs, but she is still essentially not there. Her other self ends up going to bed, wakes up, showers off, and caresses her body. There's a lot of nudity from Demi and Margaret in this movie. It doesn't really feel sexual. It feels exploratory. It feels like kind of finding your body either for the first time or the millionth time. It's an examination more it is a chance to oogle. And both of these women are beautiful. I don't want to take that away, but the way that this is shot, it doesn't feel like it's intended to, like, you know, rile your loins, you know. It feels like that we are on that journey with them as they go through touching themselves and like touching their limbs and trying to either get understanding of a body they've had or a body they're being introduced to for the first time. Suddenly, when the other self is in the mirror, she catches a mean nosebleed, leading her to use the stabilizer, which is meant to be used by her every day as a little pick me up. Well, up, like, oh, a little more pep in my step, or a little vitamin. After being hot in the living room and doing yoga hotly, she catches a glimpse of the ad looking for the new Elizabeth Sparkle in the trash can, and now we follow her in this yellow peacoat with a much steadier cam. Following Liz will eventually feel like you're kind of on the set of Children of Men, but when we are following Margaret Qualley, it feels like we are in the Barbie movie, bitch. This is our glamour shot. You better get that palm tree in the background. Before stopping at audition, she picks up a soon-to-be iconic pink metallic bodysuit, and the people auditioning are not too pleased with the applicants as of yet, but then they see who we now know as
Sue,
complete with her own name card. Harvey absolutely adores her, and he's ready to give her everything she wants, including the job and allocations that will allow her to be gone every other week, all while renaming his assistant because 4 syllables is beating his ass.
We're gonna make you Cindy. It's shorter. It's better.
Terrible. Randy Quaid, you killed this. Derogatory. We see Sue really like off to the races. She's kicking it into high gear. She's doing photo shoots. She's getting a new wardrobe, rehearsals, billboard right in the view of that penthouse window. She switches out with Elizabeth when she starts to get that not so fresh nosebleedy feeling. We see Liz come to, feeling a week of sleeping on tile and being the subject of a bathroom surgeon simulator. Thing about this bathroom with its like white tile, it feels like there are scenes where they manipulate the environment because it feels like an easier background to do that in. I'm sure someone can write an essay just about the bathroom itself. We follow Liz as we go to her old place of work, and it's starting to get that little bit more of a jumpy capture of her. Keep an eye on that for the rest of the movie. She goes to see that all of her posters have been cleared out of the shining hallway, and Harvey gives her a box of her things accompanied with a going away gift wrapped in what appears to be someone's leftover Christmas wrapping paper because it is nowhere near December. Why do I have reindeers on this wrapping paper? Liz goes home and marks the calendar with dates that are for her and dates that are for Sue, and she spends a lot of her time just like watching TV and watching the days go by before Sue reigns again. After kind of gazing over the literally depressed armchair that Liz has been living in for the last 7 days, she kicks off a DIY project because maybe long term just having a body laying in the middle of the bathroom floor is not a great idea. So she's trying to like find a spot to make a little hidey hole. During this little bit of construction that lasts a few days, the neighbor comes banging on the door pissed, thinking he's still living next to the out of favor Liz Sparkle, which he technically is, but he now gets to meet Sue. Oliver, which we find out his name is Oliver, quickly changes his tune and offers his tools to even help with the situation.
Got a big hammer.
Sue says Liz moved out, which I think is indicative of what happens later in the movie, because she still lives there literally half the time for now, technically. Sue finishes this job in record time and drags Liz's body out encased in darkness and moves the visual monument that Liz had in the living room out of sight as well. We now enter the Pump It Up set, where you will now be imbued with this song in your head for the rest of the day.
You got to pump it up, don't you know?
Sorry, not sorry. The workout program has definitely gone from Olivia Newton-John to a little bit more Charlie XCX. It is less branded to Sue as Sparkle Your Life with Liz Sparkle was. And I think this is a way to make it easier to replace Sue down the line, because time still moves forward. There will be a time where Sue turns 50, at least in the executive's eyes. So when the time comes for that, it's more about the spectacle of the woman in the front rather the woman herself, if that makes sense. But the vibes are completely changed. The background is a lot more minimalistic than it was previously. It's a lot more focus on the people themselves and how young and hot they are. There are no Capizios here. It is skin, skin, skin everywhere. She goes out to celebrate her first show with her castmates, pulling out this cat suit and her best red bottom boots, and she whispers to an unconscious Liz that she will not be out late, and we watch in anxiety as Liz's food matrix is extremely close to depleting. Hours later, we see the house begin to stir to life again, but it appears that Sue has brought home a gentleman caller. There's nothing that ruins a moment like destabilizing, because Liz drinks her last drop and we see Sue start to leak from her nose. This man that was under her is surely not as concerned as you think he should be, but she assures him that she's fine after he gives like a weak, like, are you okay? Like, okay, dude. Knowing that disappearing right now would be a total vibe killer, she breaks the exception of no exceptions and fills the stabilizer for an 8th dose. And she goes back there in fighting shape. The fondling continues until we see the back zipper come undone and we see viscera spill out. And then it's a hard cut to Sue waking back up. We're briefly led to believe that this was maybe a dream. Maybe that Sue actually did the transfer when it needed to be done. However, that thought is quickly yanked from us in one of the most effective scenes in the movie, where she reaches for the post-it note in the window and we see that she got a little witch finger. Liz tries to wash it off, but that's not exactly how that works. While she is attempting to do that, she sees the extra stabilizer vial in the middle of the floor, hastily discarded. She calls customer service to file a complaint. They tell her to remember that her and Sue are one and not to refer to her as she, because she is you despite living in two different beings. But at the end of the day, you are one and she is you and you are her. And she wants to fix it, but she is told that no refunds. What is used on one side cannot be taken back. So Sue got that, and now Liz has to find some nice gloves, perhaps a ring to distract. And during this entire conversation, this billboard of Sue seemingly mocks her, and she's told to respect the balance as if she is the one that tilted it. But at the end of the day, she is, because they are one. Sue is derived from Liz. That is Liz's ambition that is manifesting in Sue. Liz's desires that are being manifested in Sue. Liz begins another week of hunkering down at home, vacuuming up, when she catches a glimpse of what came from her, created on the TV screen. And I think she's filled with a bevy of emotions, ranging from envy to fascination to just rage. She even stole the flow of her little kiss to the camera. And what makes it worse is that the neighbor comes knocking looking for Sue and gushing about the show, and after a failed attempt to get Sue to come out because she is in the back rooms passed out, he hustles back to his home singing like my favorite like hyperfixation vocal stem from this movie.
You know, bump it up. You got to pump it up. You know, bump it up.
Pump it up, you know, bump it up. Like, not even the song itself. It's Oliver singing the song that I just find fascinating. An even more frantic camera angle is now seen as we see Liz get her refill and her yellow coat, now including red gloves to cover up that mean Manny. But this time it's different. She feels like she's being followed and spoken to from afar. Feeling concerned, she pops into a local diner where she is startled by an older man. When he drops his wallet to the floor, we see that he is too subscribed to the substance, because we can see the little stitch work on his back and his access card on the ground. And not only is he subscribed to the substance, he is in fact the AI nurse that we saw earlier, but obviously his other self. It begins to speak of like a lack of self-worth that grows when your other self begins to flourish, and this frightens her and she leaves. And as she does, he calls and asks, as it started eating away at you. And while she's on her way home, she runs into the biker that just was fucking her other self in the penthouse last night, who is not nearly as entranced with her as he was with Sue, continuing to now pick away at how she feels about herself. And when she gets home, she digs through her stuff that has now been marked as old junk by Sue. Bitch, there's no way I wouldn't be slapping that girl out her unconsciousness, I swear to God. She digs out Fred's old number from one of her purses and asks him out for a drink. Is she really into this man? Absolutely not. In my opinion, maybe someone else sees something I don't, but it does not seem like she really wants that man. But I understand wanting to be the apple of someone's eye for an evening, to just be called pretty, to be called worthy, to feel desired, even if it's not particularly the source you want to feel desired from. I know a lot of girls that get dressed up and go to the gas station just to get a little boosty boost every now and then, because they know they're gonna get one. And then this goes into one of the most devastating parts of the movie for me, as she puts on her red dress and she slides on her gloves as to not spurn questions from her decaying digit. And she finishes up in the mirror with some rouge on her lips, plenty of time to spare. And then she sees a quick glance at Sue before closing the secret door, and it leads her to having some feelings of inadequacy. And she tosses on a little bit more makeup, just a little bit more, just a touch. She seemingly feels satisfied, and then she goes for the door, but she has to grab her keys off the coffee table, and then the Sue billboard seemingly bores right into her. And now she's back in the bathroom. Makeup application, reapplication, scarf, pinching of the dress, and nothing feels right. And she makes another attempt at leaving, and she is unable to avoid the gaze of this fucking billboard. It's even harder when she stares at herself in the doorknob, seeing herself visually warped. And she goes into the bathroom and she breaks and she wipes this lipstick all over her face, and she rips off her lashes. And then we cut to her in her bedroom, ignoring Fred's attempts to contact her, and settles in for a night for quiche in front of the television by herself. And then we are back with Sue, and we see them filming the latest episode of Pump It Up, and everything seems to be going fine. The choreo was going off until Sue feels a little bump in her lump, and she yelps because it throws her off. And this pauses the taping, and it's delayed further because it seems like that upstairs wants to examine camera 2, which coincidentally is the ass cam. And not being able to take the frame by frame pressure of it, afraid that something is going to pop up on that camera, she goes and takes a moment for herself, and she moves a piece of chicken that was under her skin all the way from her ass to now her belly button, and then she pulls it out. Yeah, if you're eating through this movie, you are one of God's strongest warriors. I can't. We see this, but it appears that it is a nightmare. And she wakes up in the back room, Liz switching off and Sue switching on. But she does see evidence of poultry on Liz's lips. Her mood is further jilted when she sees like still covered plates of food surrounded by the armchair in front of the television. And now Sue is calling to complain, saying that Liz doesn't do anything but waste her time, and she barely has enough time for Sue. And she gets the same answer that Liz did.
Remember, there is no she and you are.
And Sue goes to tape, and she is thrown into a panic when she finds out the taping is canceled, and she has to talk to the big boss. What she thinks is going to be a firing conversation, she finds out that due to the prominence that she has gained so quickly, she's being asked to host the New Year's Eve show in a couple months. And now this kicks off a montage of Sue continuing to pull more and more stabilizer fluid out of Liz's infected injection area without having time to refresh, pushing her switch further and further away, taking more and more, and just stressing it's just a little bit longer. It's Vogue. You can't blow off the cover of Vogue. Like, we have things to do, like opportunities knocking. You'd understand. And to a point, Sue maybe genuinely believes that because she is derived from Liz. And when Sue finally relents and Liz comes back, she comes to screaming in darkness, feeling the changes that have occurred in her body. Now we see her in the shower. Her sleek black hair is now stringy and gray. An arm and a leg have completely deteriorated and aged, and half of her face has joined that as well. And she calls the number again, pissed how tipped the scales are and how irritated and frustrated at how much time Sue has stolen. And then she gets asked if she wants to stop. She just wants to stop. If she's not satisfied, she can stop. And it would just be her on her own again. She wouldn't get what she lost back, but she could stop it. But the idea of not having that version of herself is too painful. She says she just wants the balance to be respected.
So respect it.
Adhering to her nightly routine of being sat in front of a TV, Liz pushes through the pain of simply standing up because her leg is completely fucked and stiff and unforgiving and brittle. And she goes to open her farewell gift for the first time, and it is a book of French cuisine recipes. At first, the thought of veal and fromage and blood sausage disgusts her, but she begins to cook everything she can as she watches a late night television program featuring Sue, pre-recorded of course, and she mocks Sue's delicate voice and her obviously made up backstory. Like, bitch, you ain't from Indiana, you're from my goddamn spinal cord. And during this, she becomes more vocal than she has been the entire film. In her anger, she has found her voice. Sue is living her dream. And according to the program, she should remember that Sue's success is inherently her own success. It is just that Sue is a newer, younger version of her. And that's exactly what she wanted. But given the fact she's literally decaying in her kitchen, she has now bred so much resentment towards her. And what truly tilts Liz over the edge is the unprompted shade at Sparkle Your Life, watching it be called Jurassic Fitness by Sue. And this makes Liz unhinged.
Come on, come get your fucking Jurassic Fitness!
She's throwing eggs everywhere. She's throwing at the TV. She's throwing at the windows. She's putting a newspaper on the goddamn windows just to get a moment away from Sue's watchful eye. And I cannot applaud Demi enough because she fucking goes for it. She has spent a bulk of her life in the spotlight, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. People were cruel if you were a hair over 27. People were unforgiving if you showed a pinch more fat than what they deemed acceptable. And I was skeptical coming into this because I've never really seen Demi as a horror girly. Like, I've known her as a romance girly, thriller girly, and sometimes even a comedy girly. But her willingness to literally bear it all in this movie speaks to the themes that the movie presents, and it's truly standout. And since the Academy is full of cowards, I know she won't receive a damn thing at the Oscars, so that's fun. She has a full breakdown in the shower, and we see this shot of her in the shower, and this really cool shot where all four walls are sealed away, again manipulating the usage of that white tile to create a scene in dimensions. And it gives way to maybe my favorite scene transition of all 2024, maybe even of all time.
Have to control yourself!
Sue sees the carnage that Liz has left. The apartment is in shambles, and this leads Sue to make the decision to drain all of the stabilizing fluid she can from Liz's back into jars, refusing to go back. And we pan away as Sue drains Liz for all that she has. Suddenly, it is 3 months later, and we are now at the eve of the New Year's Eve show. And the billboard details the show kicking off tomorrow, 9 p.m. And she's preparing to go to bed with her hot boyfriend, needing just a touch of stabilizer to get her back. Just a little touch. We see her open this like secret cubby, and we see an unkept pile of food matrix baggies being flooded into Liz to keep her alive. And it turns out the keg is now tapped because now the fluid is a little less coconut water and a little bit more sludge. She feels the effects of going too long without stabilizing, and she calls the substance line again. And if y'all don't stop bothering this man, he already told y'all what y'all need to know and y'all just not listening. She tells him there's no more stabilizing fluid. What do? He said that your time is up, and if you want to fix this, you need to switch. And the whole point of the switch that was detailed very clearly in the instructions was to let that fluid regenerate. But Sue has ignored this balance, and it's coming to roost. She drags herself to the bathroom and initiates the switch, and Liz comes back to life after 3 months, and she must hurriedly close the door because Sue's boyfriend is now a little bit curious about what all those crashing noises are about. There's also a moment that I can't show, but when Liz closes the door, we get an ass match cut. Atch cut. That doesn't work. It's fine. Butt cut. Ooh, butt cut works. Butt smash cut. You know, we're playing with it. We have fun. Liz gets a full view of her body in the mirror after 3 months has been stolen from her. Like, she's giving full Auntie Ethel. Like, she looks like a hag. My friends quickly called her Baba Yaga upon seeing her in this form. Her back has a severe hump. Her bones are brittle. Her boobs are hanging by her ankles. She is completely taken aback. She passes an intimidation check to convince the boyfriend to leave. She finds her phone after he scrams and she pleads to the line to end the experience, which they agreed to do. She drags out the portrait once more, reveling in what she once took for granted. The next day, she goes full babushka lady to pick up her termination kit, not dealing with 81 shit on the way there. The camera is now giving the full-on women being chased on the Maury show backstage as Liz picks up the last kit. She drags Sue into the living room in front of the newly updated billboard. Side note, who the fuck is working on the billboards in the city because they are fast? Before she stabs her with the termination syringe, the man's voice echoes in her mind, asking if she's sure she wants to do this. And ultimately, she does plunge the syringe into Sue's heart. As she goes to finish the dose, she stops just short of it, and Liz is filled with regret, stating that Sue is the only part lovable left about her. And blood begins to leak from Sue's nose, and Liz is sent to a panic because it's her big night. She has to be ready. And she runs into the bathroom and ends up stabbing Sue with one end of the switch syringe and stabbing herself with the other end. And this is effective because Sue is brought back to consciousness. And this is the first time where they have been both fully aware in each other's presence. And while Liz was able to find that understanding and that middle ground that they are indeed one, Sue does not feel any of that warm fuzzy shit. No. She is blinded by her own ambition, and she views Liz as an entity that is holding her back. She is fat, she is old, she is useless. That is not my mama or my matrix. That is nothing to me. They are not one to her. She's better. And this leads to a chase with murderous intent, and Liz tries to hide in the bathroom, but Sue got that big boot, and she knocks that the fuck down. Pulls Liz up by her scalp, I think, maybe like a little skin, like by her scruff, and forces them to share the mirror for a moment. The stark difference between them encapsulated in the scene. And then she brutally smashes Liz's face into it over and over again. And then back to where this altercation started, Liz crawls into the living room and Sue is menacingly walking behind her and then kicks her to literal death. And shortly after the final blow is taken, we see another flash of "Remember You Are One" before Sue begins to cry at the scene below her that she is responsible for. Sue solemnly goes to prepare for New Year's Eve, and she's put into her beautiful dress. The stage is being set and things are fine until she gets a bit of a coughing fit. She starts to like have a little cough at the makeup station, and she excuses herself, and this coughing gets more guttural and it feels like it has layers to it and echoes to it, and she coughs up her tooth, and then in awe at the ease that came out, she proceeds to pluck out 2 more with that same like waterlogged sound happening as it's going. And it is, I feel it in my collarbone every time I watch it. She pulls it out. Hopefully craft services doesn't have corn on the cob, girl. I don't know what to really tell you at this time because she is running out of time and solutions. She got to be on set in like moments. As she's trying to figure out how to get out of this, she gets a flash in her head of the activator. How can she make a better her? And I have not talked enough about Margaret Qualley's performance. I'm probably saying that wrong. What I was afraid of while watching this movie is that she was going to take the approach of a like Born Sexy Yesterday. If you haven't seen, Pop Culture Detective has a fantastic video about that I watched a couple of years ago. She's not like Born Sexy Yesterday. She's not ignorant to the world around her. She's very ambitious. If you're unfamiliar with Born Sexy Yesterday, it's characters that are kind of like born as like fully grown adults, but maybe are not realized beings. So they have to like be guided by usually an older man to help them realize things about themselves. But Sue is very much not that. Sue is as dangerous as she is beautiful because she's unafraid to do what she needs to do to be successful. She goes to rush out of the building to try to fix this, and she runs into Harvey and all the shareholders, who are all men and they are all white and they are all old, and none of them got asked to step down when their faces started to sag. She has her lips sealed with a frightened look on her face, and then she's asked to smile. And Gay Twitter has already been wearing this gif out. She does a smile that rivals Mia Goth's at the end of Pearl. She is smiling so hard to distract from the fact that she is not and cannot show teeth as burlesque dancers start passing by with feather fans and pomp and circumstances being enjoyed by Harvey and the shareholders. She's actively crying in front of them as she watches pieces of her dream slip away and she has to leave to try to save it. Sue works her way home and is further falling apart. She's losing nails and ears, and the ear thing is particularly portrayed well because, again, that sound design team, you are not seeing the gates of heaven for the trauma you put me through, but you did such a good job. You should be proud of yourself. I hate you. She is now the one that is sprinting among the palm trees. She is no longer portrayed cinematically, but frantically, and she rushes into the bathroom to see a quarter of the activator vial left and screaming into the mirror for something to happen after she injects herself with it. Which also, maybe I'm a little nitpicky, but maybe that mirror shouldn't still be a mirror. It should be smashed to bits. But I'm going to just suspend my disbelief. It is truly the least wild thing that is going to happen within the last 20 minutes of this movie. So Sue, she finally collapses to the ground and the transformation is taking hold, and we are then introduced in a quick glance to the character that our final name card tells us is Monstro Alyssa Sue. She is more creature than she is woman at this point. None of her appendages are coming out of the right places. Her face is distorted. Liz's full actual face is on her back, but she's strained by like the skin at the bottom and the skin at the top. She has extra sets of teeth. None of them are where they should be. She is a cursed chimera, and nevertheless, hell or high titty placement, mama's got a gig. So she puts her pretty dress back on, and it is not her size, but we just wiggle in it. It's fine, girl, you got it. And she puts on her earrings conceptually, I feel like is the best way I could say that, because she doesn't really have ears anymore, so she just kind of finds a spot for them to go. All but 4 strands of hair left, and she pulls out a curling iron, melts one of them, and I shit you not, this is the moment where I started laughing in the theater, and I did not stop until the credits roll. It ranges from tiny giggles that would eventually charge up into full guffawing that waxed and waned for the rest of my initial viewing experience and for part of subsequent ones. I could not be contained. I could not be contained. This is the funniest movie I've seen all year. So she goes back to the studio. She goes back to the studio and she walks somehow through the streets of LA unbothered and gets back to the studio, and she has a vision of being let in and all these people applauding her down the hallway, but that is not exactly what is being depicted. And we see that it's about to be showtime, and Harvey's bragging about how Sue was one of his greatest creations yet. I don't know why the burlesque dancers are topless. I don't know, in this hyper reality. Again, I cannot be bothered to nitpick at what is fallible and what is not at this point. The dancers are on stage and they're ready to go, and they have their feather fans, and they have not a pasty inside again. I cannot do that. I can't do that. And then Sue somehow makes I'm so sorry. Monstro Alyssa Sue makes her way to the mic in the front of the stage, and she thanks everybody for being there tonight. And oh God, how could I forget? Before she leaves the house, she takes that poster of Liz and she cuts out the head of the poster and puts it on her face. And you hear in the background, pretty girls always have to smile. Oh my God. And that falls off, and we see her in all her glory. One of her other mouths coughs up a titty and maybe it's an eye socket, and then it falls to the floor. This woman right here screams out. They're all screaming at her, and panic rises, and Monstro Alyssa Sue is saying no, it's still me. It's still me.
It's still me! It's me! I'm Sue!
honestly the epitome of fuck around and find out. We have found the find out portion of the program. As chaos ensues, someone goes and cuts off her head. Another head begins to kind of grow like a hydra. It just emerges. Blood is spewing everywhere. It's buckets of blood. Then we get like voice lines from across the movie, and like just how this thirst for fame and fortune in notoriety and legacy has come to this moment, and it is batshit, and it is beautiful. It is the most beautiful thing I have gotten to witness in a movie theater this year. Nothing compares. So, Monstro Elissasu not feeling great after the gig. And girl, I get it. Sometimes the gig is not what you think it is. She falls to the ground in the same walkway that we have become familiar with, and she explodes out of the carnage. We see a skin flap with Liz's face on it. I love this goddamn movie. Start to move itself onto the Walk of Fame over her star. And she sees spotlights and glitter one final time among the palm trees. An audience roars in applause as she turns into a puddle of blood seeping into her star, just for it to be swept up without a moment of consideration in the morning. And I have to rush off for this part. The Substance has given me the idea that 90s heartthrobs can do horror movies in 2024. So I'm actually going to go see The Heretic in literally under an hour. So I will wrap up this video later looking less like this. I have to finish that, but I do appreciate you watching this long. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I'm gonna give you my final thoughts, and I'm gonna look like this. Hi. It's 2 weeks later. I just wanted to add a couple of final thoughts on the end here. I love this movie. I love this movie. I love how it depicts the seedier sides of the show business. I think it's important that the other substance user we see is a man, because these types of thoughts and insecurities absolutely can affect men. They don't define men the same way they define women. So I'm glad that Elizabeth Sparkle was still the main focal point. But that guy wasn't even in the movie business. He was hot AI doctor. He wasn't at Grace Sloan. He's just in a regular hospital. But he was still impacted by those same insecurities and those same feelings of inadequacy. And I think that's important to depict. I think you can see Liz's destructive journey trying to hold on to the part that she feels is most valuable, because she spent a lot of years in the spotlight and a lot of years being in favor, and she wanted to hold on to that at the end to her detriment. I think about the makeup scene constantly, to the point where I was going to put makeup on again to do this part of the video, but a little self-care moment instead felt more appropriate. I think it is an absolutely disgusting movie, and I loved every second of it. I've rewatched it like 5 times, and honestly, before I watch some YouTube videos cover it that I've been avoiding in preparation for my own video, I'm probably gonna watch it again. To me, this movie is so perfect, and all of the pieces move together so well. The sound design, the acting, the directing, the cinematography, the gore, all the delicious gore in this movie. Ugh. Beautiful. Corley Fargo, I liked your movie. And if you want to celebrate its success, maybe we can go go-kart racing. But I understand if you're busy. Oh, well, anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope to put out another video sooner than 6 months from now. There's a couple of things I have cooking in my brain. I am Bianca probably on most socials. I recently joined BlueSky, so you can check me out there. See you later.